Growing up, I had dreams and aspirations, but always felt like the kid that didn't fit in. For the most part, I wasn't a bad kid, but when I made the transition into adulthood, I turned to the streets for guidance. This led to getting locked up in juvenile hall, doing time in CYA, and eventually a 120-month sentence in federal prison. I had a lot of time to think and reflect during my federal sentence, so I share with you what I learned, hoping I can positively influence someone else's life with Prison Talk. What's up, everybody? Big Herc, Fresh Out Life After Penitentiary, here with another edition of Prison Talk. I want to say thank you for subscribing and telling all your friends to subscribe. And thanks for tuning in to our Instagram, which is FreshOutSeries, along with our Twitter and our SoundCloud. And if you haven't checked out Chef V's prison spreads, check it out on Patreon, patreon.com. We have some new stuff coming out. You know, go ahead and pledge to that and keep that rolling. But we love you guys, and we want to say we appreciate all the questions coming in. So I had a question for one of our viewers. Big Herc, basically, you know, you ran across a lot of people doing time, and did anybody you ran across were they involved in trucking? I'm a prior military, now truck driver, never been to jail or prison, and not planning to since watching your videos, which motivate me. I was wondering, since you're in a federal penitentiary, how would truck drivers who were drug smugglers and different drug dealers or drug cartels, because throughout my time in the service, I have noticed that drugs itself, period, is very common in the military. And I'm assuming you already know that since you have relatives who were in the service as well. Interesting question, because trucking plays a big part of the whole drug smuggling business. And so I actually had a cellmate who worked for one of the cartels, and his job was to make sure that the loads made it safely to their destinations. And prior to my cellmate getting involved with this, drug cartel, they were losing a lot of loads. Probably 1 out of every 4 loads was getting hit. They weren't packaging the drugs properly in the trucks. You know, the trucks were getting stopped at the checkpoints, and just basically they were losing loads, load after load, which each load would amount to anywhere from $250,000 to $500,000. So my cellmate, being the ingenious person that he is, decided to go down and check out the borders, see what was going on as far as how the trucks were coming across the border, do some logistics as far as, what truck checkpoints to go to, what not to go to. And, he took it upon himself, and he formed an actual corporation, which was a trucking company that would actually haul real products from Mexico to the United States or across the country, and worked out a very effective way of transporting these drugs. And so you have cold storage trucks, which have AC units in them, which help keep the products cold. So, a lot of times guys are trying to haul products in like dry storage trucks, or in trucks that really couldn't mask the drugs as well. And a lot of these times, they go around these trucks, they look at them, they were bulging with, in the side of the truck walls, the drugs were bulging out, and it was very noticeable visually. So this is how they were getting busted. So what they did was actually learn to repackage these trucks with the drugs, but also have an actual real load in the trucks, so that when you were moving from point A to point B, you were actually doing one of two things. You were transporting drugs, but you were also doing a shipment, whether it be cases of chicken, cases of beef, various types of meats, cold products. So they would have this stacked in the truck, and also the truck lining would be lined with kilos of marijuana. And they became very effective with this particular method. And they went from losing 1 out of 4 loads to basically losing hardly any loads. And so, my partner, my cellmate would get up in the mornings, and he would get on his computer, he would book loads all across the country. The trucks would come in, they would have the cold products coming from Mexico. They'd be loaded down with drugs in the actual truck interior of these particular trucks, and they would make it through, and they would go to their warehouses, which were already prearranged destination spots, drop spots. They would unload the drugs, keep it pushing to the location, unload the cold storage, and basically make money on two sides. Now, the side for as far as the products, they weren't really cared about whether or not the money was made on that side, because it was more or less a front for the drugs to get to point A to point B. But on the drug side, like I said, once the drugs were unloaded, they were able to take those from wherever they needed to go, from A to B or C to D, wherever the case may be. But yeah, trucking, that right now, that's how the drugs move, across this country. It's not flowing in to a lot of these private airports like it used to be, because of just how things have changed with the military getting involved with the war on drugs. But I'm not sitting here trying to dry snitch or tell on the drug game, but everybody knows this is how drugs are moved, whether it be cars, RVs, these diesel trucks. Drugs is very significant, and so like I said, you being an ex-military guy who asked the question, I'm quite sure you know how drugs get on base. You got these military passes. You go from one base to the next. You're not being stopped while you're on the roads. You're not being harassed. Hey, man, that thing can be loaded down with anything, whether it be cocaine, marijuana, what have you. And, money corrupts, and that's the game. So, yeah, the trucking game, like I said, I've heard stories, from somebody who's very involved with the cartel, who was moving a lot of drugs on trucks. And, it's a big business, drugs and these diesels, man, going to, these different grocery stores, or these smaller grocery stores, a lot of times before they make one stop, they done already stopped somewhere else and dumped off the product. So that's the game, man, drugs and trucks.